So it won't be as deep as the last one for sure. This is more talking about what Midnight is and some capabilities we have, and really to kind of solicit all y'all to come help build the Midnight ecosystem along with the Cardano ecosystem because we're just part of the family. At least that's how I like to think about it. I'm Ben Beckmann. I'm the Chief Technology Advisor. I work for the Midnight Foundation. My job is to run solutions and product. So I get to hear the complaints with the solutions team, and I get to work with the product team to try to fix it. So we'll talk about that a little bit as we go on. All right, so first off, Midnight is a partner chain. People ask, well, what in the world does that mean, at least in the context of Midnight? It means we're paying for things. We're paying for specific services that Cardano provides and leveraging them on Midnight. And we're paying for two, we will be paying for three. So the first two that we're paying for, as many of you may have noticed, the Night token is a Cardano native asset. So you hopefully came and claimed in the Glacier drop, and then if you didn't, you scavenged. Many of you scavenged. I can say that for sure because you broke our systems a couple times. So way to go! Very proud of that. So along with the transaction fees that come from that token living on Cardano and moving around, there's also a gesture that you can do with the Night token to generate dust, which is the fuel that Midnight uses to run smart contracts. All of that happens on Cardano. All of it happens on Cardano today. All of it will happen on Cardano mainnet for Midnight's mainnet shortly. In the future, we will also be paying for the SPO population. So if you're an existing SPO with Cardano, you'll have the opportunity, if you choose to run a Midnight node, the delegation that you've already built up will be what's used for your waiting, and then you'll be paid in Night. So for these services that Cardano provides and the security that Cardano provides, Midnight's in a way repaying that ecosystem for the services that it provides. And it's nice because it puts us in a position where I don't really have to worry about the value carrying token on Midnight, at least not today. It's safely maintained and is the steward through Cardano. And in the future, it can move to Midnight, but it doesn't have to. It can stay there, and you can have all the same features. So that's what we mean when we talk about a partner chain for Midnight. There are other interpretations of partner chain for sure, but this is how Midnight pays for these services. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about Midnight itself. So it's built on three core pillars. The first one being operational predictability. So how much does it actually cost you to run your dApps? You'll see as we go through the presentation that we've separated it. You have the value carrying asset, which is Night, and then you have this other asset, which we'll talk about in depth, which is Dust, which is your ability to use the system. And having that separation means that you can have a capital expense for buying Night, and then you don't have to keep rebuying Night to run smart contracts. You can use what it puts off as Dust to run the smart contract. So it has a different profile. And the analogy we like to use is when you bought your iPhone, did you spend Apple stock? Not likely. You spent dollars or euros because the stock appreciates and you don't want to unload that thing to buy a phone that's going to depreciate. So let's separate that and have that similar type of model in Web3 where the thing that carries the value is not the thing that you're spending to run the system. The other element is cooperative tokenomics. So because of that mixture, we have the ability to extend ourselves beyond our single chain. And you'll see some talk about this in the slide, and you may hear us talk about the capacity exchange, which Pi, who's somewhere here over there, has built out for us to support this type of capability where you can get capacity with other tokens. So if you have tokens that are on Midnight, you can exchange them, and in the future, if you have tokens on these other chains, you can use those as well. So it'll provide a service to give us more reach. The last thing is rational privacy. The hypothesis for Midnight is that Web3 is stuck because everything's transparent. We've built out a lot of applications, but we're not going to get too much more adoption because you can't step into some parts of the business world if everything's transparent. There's just rules and other concerns that a business would have where you have to have some level of privacy. And so we built out a system that we're going to say enables rational privacy. So you can choose. There's a spectrum, right? There's totally transparent, there's totally black, and then there's in between. And Midnight can support that entire spectrum. So those are the pillars that we're built on. Talking a little bit about the two tokens we have. We like to use an analogy, basically an energy analogy. So you have night. This is the Cardano native asset. It's a fixed supply, 24 billion. It's already been minted. You can go look it up in the Explorers. And with night, you can make a gesture. So just think of going to your wallet and hitting a button, similar to a staking button, but you just say generate dust. That generation basically fills up something kind of like a battery. You have an amount of dust from the night that you have that you can accumulate, and then you'll hit a limit. And when you hit that limit, that's as much dust as you'll get for the amount of night that you have designated to generate dust. But the separation is very convenient because this is simply your ability to buy capacity on the chain, and that this resource is shielded. And I should just jump to the next slide to show you the comparison. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, quick question. Do you yet have rough numbers you can throw out for what these are going to look like? One night generates 20 dust per week, or what do those numbers look like concretely?
I believe it's one night will generate 5 over the course of a week.
Okay.
And the reason for a week, because let me explain this, is there are certain rules and regulations around whether something is certain types of assets. Maybe you know what I'm getting at here. If something does not have a futures market, it cannot be a commodity, and we're certainly not security for sure. If it is only lasts for a week, it can't have a futures market by definition, and so that's why dust is set the way it is.
And then just to anchor that, what would be a typical transaction cost in dust? 0.2?
I would love to give you a good answer there. It will vary. We'll talk about it a little later in the talk, but it depends on block fullness. And so if the system is underutilized, the price goes down.
Do you have rough as like
at
typical steady state?
At the moment, transactions cost 0.3 dust, but we do expect that to ramp. And as a foundation, our interest is in enabling you guys to use the system, so we have the ability to help with this type of processing, just so you know.
Can you clarify what you meant dust only lasts a week? And second of all, can you motivate why the saturation mechanism?
So I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna carry that over this slide, which I just flipped to, and then the next one that goes along with it. But we'll try to get to that. So like I said, we have the night token and the dust resource. The night token is what you usually expect a cryptocurrency to be, right? It's what allows you to carry utility and govern the particular system. It's persistent. You choose it when it's expended if you want, or you can hold on to it. It's fully transferable, fully tradable. So it has the features that you would expect. It's a native asset, so everything that ADA can do minus staking, Night could do. So you can bring it into DEXs and things like that. Dust is a very different beast. Dust is simply a capacity resource. So it's like fuel. You got fuel in your car. When you burn it, it's gone. The nice thing is it's renewable. It will just keep refilling over and over based off of how much night you're holding against that particular dust. So it's burned. When it's consumed, it is not transferable. So it is absolutely not a token. It's the most useless token ever because it just sits there wherever you designate it at, and you can spend it from there, and that is all. So to avoiding certain qualifications. It's shielded, so how you spend your dust is up to you, and the system doesn't reveal it. The system reveals it as commitments done in zero knowledge, which is crypto garbage once it gets to the chain. You can't actually interpret what it does. It doesn't have a particular cap in that you can choose to not generate dust, or you can choose to generate dust. Dust spending is what actually sets the prices. So if I have a ton of dust and I'm not using it, that doesn't affect the price. It's only when it's spent. And so then let's talk about how the dust generation and decay works, because this is what the root of half your question was. So initially, I have my night token. I can designate a dust address that it'll be generated at, and it'll fill up over the course of a week. It will reach a cap. So if I have one night in a week, I'll have 5 dust. If I have 10 night in a week, I'll have 50 dust, right? The math is just a linear accumulation. When you choose to spend it, your battery will drop, right? You expelled some energy, or you consumed some of the resource of the network. So that spend will be recorded, and then it'll just accumulate back up linearly again, just like before. So if you spend half, it'll drop to half, and then over the half of a week, so over the next 3.5 days, it would go back to the limit. If you choose to spend your dust or delegate, or excuse me, spend your night or delegate it somewhere else, then you can sever the connection. And what will happen is the battery will deplete over the course of a week. So that's how the dust mechanism works. Any questions on that?
So after moving the night, how many days it takes to decay to zero?
It's linear. It's done over the course of a week, both up and down. Yep.
So then, does that mean that you need to linearly forecast your costs, right? Like, what if you're going through like a highs? It almost sounds like an energy company, right? It's like, because if you're like going through a spike in traffic all of a sudden, and you could potentially, okay, well, let's buy a bunch more night, but oh shit, this is not actually going to start accumulating again until tomorrow or whatever, right? Like, how do you deal with unpredicted traffic things?
I think Pi would.
Pi is very excited.
Pi would like to answer that question, and I think he's got a good answer.
Yeah.
So that is what the capacity exchange is for. So we are building, kind of in partnership with Shielded and the Midnight Foundation, a service. So dust is non-transferable, but what you can do is you can find somebody who is willing to sponsor your transaction. So they build the partial transaction that covers a certain amount of dust, and they hand it to you, but that's using Z-swaps to say, hey, this is only valid in a transaction if it has an output of, 0.5 M night to this address. And so then when you build your transaction, say you're dealing with this spike, you can pay for that capacity that you didn't plan for in a midnight native token by kind of finding that sponsor, building your half of the transaction, and your half of the transaction includes that output to the person who's sponsoring your transaction. And then you fuse them together and you submit them to the chain. So the capacity exchange is your, oh, I didn't plan well enough. I need to go and pay for that. And then, obviously you're paying in an economic asset, but yeah.
Yep, that's exactly right. So you can do if you can plan ahead far enough, you can accumulate enough night to cover that, or we have options with the capacity exchange to help you in the urgent need. And the nice part is it also allows you to reach across to other chains. So it has other features. Well, you'll hear much more about the capacity exchange.
And then I'll let you move on. Sorry, from this purgatory. So are either the cap or the dust TX fee rate, are they kind of calibrated such that if all batteries are drained, like to zero, it's kind of like the network's like capacity to process transactions is being fully utilized? Are you calibrating that in that way, or are you just setting the caps as they are and the dust rates as they are, and like, because there's like an implied of like this is the maximum capacity of the network?
Yeah, so the network is modeled as an oversubscription model, so kind of like your cell phone network. So if we all picked up our phones right now and tried to make a call, might not work. But since only a few guys in the back corner there are surfing the web, it's fine. So you could, I guess, theoretically drain all of the dust, but I think you'd be so oversubscribed that you would never get there. It's just there. You still have contention. It's a blockchain. Yep. So the prices move around, but like you'd expect, and we'll get to that also. But feel free to jump in. All right. So Pi was one slide ahead of me. So we have what we refer to as the midnight network capacity. We have various ways of getting access to it. So there's the direct access. I have my night. I want to pay with my dust. You're welcome to do that. There's the indirect access where it turns out because of sponsorship, you can actually reach Web 2 applications. So you can have an application on your phone that you don't even know is using crypto at all. And the sponsorship allows you to do a REST call, get the partial transaction built and matched, and push it through. And then using a simpler version of what Pi is mentioning, of a Babel station, basically you can pay with other tokens initially on Midnight, but then extending out to places like Ethereum and Solana and whatnot, so that you can pay with those native tokens as long as the provider is willing to accept them. So very much trying to be multi-chain on day one, right off the bat. So then how does pricing work? So it's a dynamic pricing. We're targeting block fullness of 50%. These are governable features, so these can change as they get out in the market, and we need to change them. It's made up of a few variables. So you have the congestion rate, which just basically how congested is the system. The more those blocks are full, the more congested it is, so the price will ramp up. You have the transaction weight, how much is this actual transaction that I need to put through? You have the min fee, and that basically makes up your transaction costs. So nothing real rocket science here. It's the same thing you've seen before. It's just being done off of dust as opposed to being done off of night. And then we also, as I mentioned, have a token that lives on Cardano today. So it's a Cardano native asset. And when we launch Midnight, we will put a protocol bridge in. So if you choose, you can move your, what we refer to as C night, Cardano night, over to Midnight or M night. Why might you want to do that? Well, there are certain finality features of Midnight that may draw you in that particular direction. For example, if you take your night on Cardano and generate dust today, you'll get dust in 12 hours. So we wait till finality, and then it'll accumulate forever and always, just like you'd expect. But if you want to be a little more finicky or a little quicker with that change, you can move it over to Midnight. You don't have to wait for Cardano to finalize. So minor detail, but it's possible. And so what does that mean? That means that we, in a way, have tokens that live on two chains. Like literally they live on two chains, and the accounting for it is such that there's double, that there's 24 billion on both. But we do locking and unlocking in a way that's described over there with certain constraints to make sure that we never violate a property where we have more tokens than there's supposed to be. So 24 billion is a hard cap. When we do locking or unlocking or movements of tokens from Cardano to Midnight, there's certain invariants that are always true. And so you'll feel them in the user experience in that you have to wait for things to finalize on Cardano before they appear on Midnight, but that's done so that we know that this is 100% safe. It's a trustless system. We don't have to worry about any actors in the middle. And so those invariants basically relate to what's locked and unlocked on the two chains and what the reserves are, so that you know that the balance is kept correctly. Are there any questions on that? That'll be a protocol level bridge. So you'll be able to, from Cardano, submit your night to a smart contract. It'll get captured there, and then through a protocol bridge, show up on Midnight 12 hours later. So we are also working with bridge partners to enable this at a faster rate where they take a little risk, right? If it doesn't settle on Cardano like they expect, there's a little exposure there. But they are used to handling this type of capability. That's in their business. They know how much to charge, and we're working with pros like Pi's team and others that can help us set this up, and they can actually become profitable for them. They can run these types of services, and they can take the revenue.
Will that bridge be designed in such a way to account for menu TXO as long as we have it, so that we're not actually locking up a bunch of ADA as part of bridging night back over to Midnight?
So that bridge is a one-way bridge. We refer to it as the Hotel California. We would like to make it a two-way bridge. However, we just simply haven't figured out a zero-knowledge way to commit it back to Cardano. We are trying. But at the moment, it's a direct one-way bridge where you would commit it to the bridge on Cardano at UTXO. So you're paying it to that script, and you're telling it where it should show up on Midnight.
So you're also depositing that 1.5 ADA one way into the Hotel California and essentially burning 1.5 ADA every time you bridge some amount of night over to Midnight. Yep.
But these are, so we'll get into this. These are things that We're trying to get the MVP out, and would love to work with people to figure out how to get rid of those nuisances if we can.
Sorry, actually, going back a slide to the fees. I know we're regressing instead of moving forward. I'm sorry. So, and forgive me because I haven't worked with Knight at all. But so, like on Cardano, we're used to like the deterministic fee calculation, right? So, with this, given that it goes up with transaction, or rather network congestion, is there a predictable way to know what the congestion rate is going to be? Is it locked in for a certain period of time, or is it more like Ethereum, where it's just what it happens to be on chain at that time, and you're kind of like guessing, you know, where you're doing like a what's almost like a bid to get in, or how does that actually work?
So it's over a small window, a few blocks is the price is set, but it'll vary as that window moves. Your price that you submitted at is the price that it will cost you when it shows up on chain. Unfortunately, congestion is a lagging indicator, so you can't use it to really predict what the price is going to be. You can just forecast.
So
Sorry, but when you're submitting, like at submission time or when you're constructing it, do you know like, again, like
Yeah,
what
the fee
at
yeah.
that time?
Yep, and you'll submit it, and it'll get processed at that.
But it's valid in that window.
Yes,
Okay, so it's not like okay, so what it is now, but it could go up or down. As
it could. So if you built it and you didn't submit it, you sat on it for
Sure.
too long, the price could change on you.
right.
And that is, again, one of the nuisances
Oh, okay.
because you got to build a proof, and the proof gets submitted to the system. So there is a time window that you.
And are you as the user aware of that window? Is there like a time to live that you're aware that like okay, until this time, I'm guaranteed this is the congestion rate?
I don't think most users would be aware of that, just because they're not informed enough. But there is.
Yeah,
yes.
sorry, not the
Yeah.
end user. I mean, us as like developers interacting with the system. Are we aware of the TTL of that congestion rate?
Yeah, and you could set it.
Oh, okay. All right.
So this leads to a forecasting squared problem, because now you have to, well, okay, not forecasting squared because you know the congestion rate for a short period of time, but let's say, coming back to your question earlier where you said you have to plan ahead, potentially, or you have to interact with the market to obtain on demand, right? Well, you also have to provision that ahead. So you have to forecast the congestion rate to know what fees you'll need, and then you have to forecast where you'll get the source of the dust for it as well. Is there any way to make that a little bit, I guess, easier for the dApps to be able to do this kind of effectively?
Well, with the nice part about the capacity exchange model is that it can add the fee for you after the fact. You build a partial transaction, and you don't even have to worry about it if you'd like to use that service. Yeah. So there's gradation here where some are much more like what you've seen in these other chains, but then we also have the capability to build services where you wouldn't even know that that's happening. And you can monetize that in whatever creative way you can get people to value it. All right. So we are also evolving our block production. So we are going to launch with a permissioned network. So we're very much following the book that Cardano used. So we're going to have a federated set of nodes, those which we've been announcing over the last few weeks. Those will operate the chain. We're going to let it soak in for a little while so we get comfortable with it, put some dApps on it, make sure everything is operating the way we expect. And then we're going to do a similar trick to what Cardano did, where they had a D parameter that I think it went from 1 to 0, actually. And we'll rotate over. Our D parameter is, interestingly enough, 2 numbers. One is how big is the federated committee, one is how big is the permissionless committee. But once we start doing this, we'll walk through a hybrid transition where you have both of them living at the same time. But it turns out as the SPOs show up, it becomes beneficial for the system to shut down the federated nodes, because that actually becomes where the fault tolerance drops, is because of you having that. So we will go through a transition period and then slowly retire the federated committee altogether, and it'll just simply be the SPOs operating the network. So very much like you saw in Cardano in the earlier days, we're going to follow the same scheme. And those that can produce blocks on midnight will solely be SPOs in Cardano, and it's the weight of the delegation that you've built up already. And the nice part is if your other SPOs don't join midnight, then your weighting will, in a way, rise slightly because it's just those that are producing blocks at midnight.
So the blocks will be assigned just based on the amount of ADA delegated to like the Cardano pool, or it will be also a delegation into the midnight system. Sorry if I did not understand.
Nope, you're right on. So it'll be the SPO's ADA delegation that's used to build the schedule on midnight. So we do. So the question was if we added other coins to support staking, right? What would that mean? It turns out the math on that is not simple. Going from 1 to 2 is easy, but going from 2 to 3 or more is much more difficult. The likelihood is that we will bring in some of these other tokens because we want to reach out to these other chains. There is some cost considerations because like running a Solana node is super expensive and also very costly. It's not a cheap endeavor. But if we bring one of those in, there will also be a weight. So like when we go to 2, like for example, when you can state night, then there'll be a weighting between the two. The security will be dominated by Cardano for quite some time. So that weighting is going to be heavily in that direction until a future point. Yeah. Yep. Oh, we got a question over here.
Do you have a later slide that talks about how the consensus works?
No.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow then, happy to talk about it. It's a BFT. Okay, so then yep.
Same way than Rodrigo, he has a stake pool in Chile. We have a stake pool here in Buenos Aires. We wonder about the hardware requirements. We have a bar metal node, and it's complex to adjust to the requirements of Midnight and Cardano together. Can you give us a glimpse of what we will need to run a Midnight and Cardano node together?
I can. You're going to hear a few of the same terms you've heard in the past. So you have to run a Cardano node. Right? You're an SPO, you're running a Cardano node anyway. As an SPO, though, you might not be running DB Sync. Ooh is right. So at the moment, the configuration requires DB Sync because we need a ETL in between the Cardano node and Midnight. We are very interested in working with partners that can get rid of that thing because your Cardano node cost doubles when you run DB Sync. And then Midnight sits on top of it. Our cost measurements that we did like in AWS with the cloud is to run a node itself somewhere around $500 a month. This was a couple months ago when we did the math. And like 350 of that is the Cardano infrastructure. So the Midnight infrastructure is a small cost on top. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to make DB Sync into something significantly smaller. So it's the cost of running the Cardano node plus the extra $100 to run the Midnight node. And that's it.
Thank you.
Preferably. We're not there yet, though.
Thank you.
And we can give you specs, like machine specs also. So
All right, so I'm going to ask you the one you were probably hoping we would miss in the bottom right corner there. But so SPOs are earning night rewards. What about all the delegators to the SPOs? How are they getting rewarded?
So step 1 will pay the SPOs, and step 2 is to pay the delegators. So initially to the SPOs, because we need them to operate, we need them to have benefit. The SPOs can choose how to distribute from there, but
So at least initially, it'll be the SPOs need to figure out a distribution method if they want to share those rewards with their delegates.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And we're very open to methodologies for what step 2 is. I love the.
If we manually have to like deliver the rewards to like delegators, isn't that create a risk as a business?
I think it depends on how you want to run your business. Some SPOs will be happy to sweep the funds and just take them themselves. Others want to distribute them out. There will be differences depending on where the night is, because the rewards will be paid on midnight, and so there's a lot of optionality there. Is you might want to pay the reward to the delegators on midnight, or you might want to pay to it on Cardano, and other fees show up. So we need to think about this.
Doesn't it become a security? I'm ignorant in the face, but like wonder if I have to manually deliver them, doesn't create that dependency. Like, do I have to get the KYC the customer or the delegators? Do I have to like do something like that?
Those types of things do show up. Yes.
Damn.
So we're trying to launch with step one, where we can get the rewards out to the delegators. We will very much solicit this community for what's step two and what are the options for step two, because some of them will be less appealing than others, and having it be automated seems to be a very strong trend.
Just to add my hat in the ring, I think it'd be quite elegant to just allow negative pool fees. So the pool that's running on midnight could say, well, I'm earning this extra income. I'm going to take some of my ADA rewards that I would earn and distribute those out, and you basically set the arbitrage between them. And then the Cardano protocol is automatically distributing ADA to the delegators, who may not even know what midnight is, may not want to receive those, and kind of let that solve it. But
Yeah, we love options, right? And what we want to do is we want to fulfill what the community needs and wants.
Well, the challenge, right, is aside from any kind of like legal things, like what Rodrigo is saying, is that, you know, sort of like what we were talking with Alexia yesterday about account stuff. The whole reason why rewards work the way they do in Cardano is because depending on your delegation, you might get like a fraction of an ADA, and sending that to you would cost more in fees than it would of what the reward is worth, not to mention Menu TXO. So all of a sudden it's a non-trivial exercise for the stake pool operator. Like, oh, you know, you hand it out. But it's like, well, how do you feasibly do that when it would cost more to send it? I mean, it's just kind of confusing to me that like that's the case when like it's something that's been a known solution that was solved in Cardano a long time ago.
I do think there's another side to that argument, which over time we need to peel apart, is that the SPO could provide a service with that night that they hold, like a dust sponsorship type service. And they may see that as a valuable thing to offer to the community and be able to collect fees that they could repay to their delegators. So I think there's a bunch of different business models that hide in here that I would love to discover with this community and figure out the 2 or 3 that start to taste good. And then, you know, maybe there's more than one that maybe have more than one option.
Okay.
But yeah, this particular thing's gonna come up.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be difficult. It's just like, but just saying like, hey, you figure out how to distribute it, it can be quite a challenge.
Yeah, yep. So I think optionality is the key there. But I'm open to arguing about it, you know, over beers. All right, so moving on. Another element of the infrastructure is Midnight is a zero knowledge based system. You have to build proofs. Proofs are computationally intensive. Our proofs are proofs, what I'd like to refer to as proofs in the small. The complexity of the proof is kind of on a lower order, as opposed to a roll-up, which is a proof in the large, right? A big batch processing. But our proofs still can take a few seconds, you know, or a minute to run, depending on what hardware they're on. Most of them don't. But when they do, you can't run them on a phone, or you can't run them on your laptop, or the user experience is so terrible that you're never going to use the system again. So what the challenge is, well, how do you outsource that? How do you use some other system to do this in a way that you can trust that system is working correctly, or you house it yourself? So one option is that you can run locally and you can point to your own proof server and you can keep everything in your hands. Another one is that you can use a proof server in the cloud. And we'll talk about that just for a moment here. So we're going to be providing 2 different flavors of proof server in the cloud, and it kind of depends on your application, which one would be you would prefer. But basically, we want to build out one of them that is zero trust. So there is a machine in the cloud that your wallet can actually attest that that machine is running a piece of software that is the proof server as published from the Midnight repo. So you can go look at the code, you can make sure that nobody's tracking anything, all of this. So you'll be able to verify that. The wallet itself will be able to verify that. So we're working on that with teams like Lace. And then another one is what's referred to as a confidential Kubernetes cluster. This one, there is a trust assumption in that all of these confidential Kubernetes clusters that are provided in the cloud use self-signed certificates. So you got to trust the vendor. You got to trust Google. You got to trust Microsoft. Those are good for games. Those are good for things where it's a lower risk item and you need lots of things and you want less expense. So we will offer both. We have the Kubernetes one now. We will have one that's referred to as a confidential space or zero trust in about a month. And those will be available. The foundation will be able to provide those. We're going to provide them out as services to the market to use. And what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to empower others to do this same thing, because we're running in Google right now, but that doesn't fit everybody, and there's lots of nuance, so that this will enumerate. There'll be many versions of this. But what we really want is we want a system where the computation that's running over here in the cloud that you don't necessarily see can be attested to in your wallet. So you can absolutely know that this is running an appropriate piece of software and no funny business is going on. And then you can do Midnight on your phone. All right, so what's the engine to scale this? You guys are gonna have seen this over and over, and I love talking about this to this community. So I work for the foundation. My job is stewardship, 1 minute, of the network. And so with stewardship of the network, that means getting everybody to the bar quickly, and it also means having a staged way to come up with new ideas, to get ideas out into the community, get them vetted, preferably not by my only team, but by lots of brains that really are interested in this thing. And so what we're doing is we're setting up a core group of working groups. We have one running now, so maybe members here have been in the wallet working group. We're gonna keep expanding that out. If you go to the notify link down there at the bottom, you can register and you'll get emails about this stuff. They're going to start taking off. One of them started, but the others are going to start taking off next month. And the idea is that we have Midnight problem statements, Midnight improvement proposals to help pull Midnight in a particular direction that suits the users. And it's done in public so that you can all come and contribute.